It all started innocently enough. I had just moved to a quiet town, one of those places where people wave at you on the street and you leave your doors unlocked without thinking twice. I was adjusting to the peace, but after a few weeks, I realized I was getting too isolated. I was looking for a part-time job and decided to browse Craigslist. I'd heard people find all kinds of gigs there, so I thought I'd give it a shot. That's when I saw the listing that would come to haunt me forever. The listing read, "Help needed, short-term job, immediate start. $. The description was vague, looking for someone to assist with a short-term project in exchange for compensation. Preferably someone local. Serious inquiries only. No phone number, just an email. contact.job312@gmail.com. Something about it felt off, but the offer of fast cash made me click. The response came almost immediately. "Thanks for your interest. We need someone to come to a location tonight. The task will take no longer than 3 hours. You'll be paid $200 at the end. Reply for the address." I was cautious but curious. I emailed back, and within minutes, I received the address. It was in a secluded area on the outskirts of town. Nothing too strange, just a little farther than I was used to. At 8:45 p.m., I left my apartment, telling myself it was just a simple job. As I drove, the road grew darker, the houses farther apart. The street lights disappeared the further I went until I found myself on a narrow dirt path that led into the woods. I pulled into a gravel lot in front of a small, decrepit cabin. It didn't look like much, but I figured it was just an old office space. I got out of my car and walked toward the cabin, feeling uneasy but pushing through. When I entered, it was eerily silent. The air was thick with dust, the only sound a distant ticking clock. I called out, but no one answered. Just then, a man appeared in the doorway, wearing a hoodie with a baseball cap pulled low. His face was obscured by shadows. "You here for the job?" he asked, his voice flat. I nodded. "Good. Follow me." I had no choice but to follow him as he led me down a narrow hall to a dimly lit room. The walls were lined with old shelves, and at the center of the room was a table with a large metal box on it. It looked like a safe, but I didn't question it. I just felt a strange unease creeping up my spine. The man didn't say anything else. He just stood there, staring at me. "Open it," he ordered, his tone colder now. I reached for the box, my hands trembling. The moment I touched it, I heard the door slam behind me, and I spun around, heart racing. "You're not the first," the man said, stepping closer. "Others have been here before, but they weren't serious enough. You'll finish what they started." The room grew colder, the air heavier. I was rooted to the spot, unable to move. The man's smile twisted unnervingly. "Open the box," he repeated. I reluctantly lifted the lid. Inside, nothing. Just empty space. But the more I looked, the more it felt like the emptiness was pulling at everything around it. My vision blurred, my breath caught in my throat. It wasn't just empty. It was wrong, like a hole in reality itself. The man's grin stretched wider. "You're here now," he whispered. "You'll stay." I couldn't breathe. I felt a coldness inside me, deep in my chest. And then everything went black. I woke up in my car, parked at the edge of town, the first rays of dawn breaking through the trees. My head was foggy. How had I gotten back here? I didn't remember leaving the cabin. I didn't remember anything. All I knew was that the listing was gone. I searched online, but it had vanished. No trace of it anywhere. I deleted my Craigslist account that day and haven't looked back. So if you ever see a listing like that, vague, promising quick money and a short-term job, don't respond. Don't go, because once you're there, you may never leave. And I don't think I'm the last to learn that the hard way. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I moved into a small one-bedroom on the third floor of an apartment building that seemed perfectly normal. The landlord was friendly, the rent was reasonable, and the area felt safe. I was excited about this fresh start, hoping to escape the weight of my old life. A couple of weeks later, I was browsing Craigslist for furniture when I found a listing. Roommate needed. Share a 2-bedroom apartment. $500 per month. Clean, quiet, respectful. No pets. Though I didn't need a roommate, the price was low, so I emailed the poster asking if the room was still available. Within an hour, I got a response. Yes, the room is available. You seem like a good fit. I'll give you the details if you're interested. Come by anytime. I'll be here. No name, no phone number, just the address of my building. Odd, but I brushed it off. Maybe it was a roommate trying to keep things simple. I replied I'd stop by after work. When I arrived, the door was slightly ajar. I knocked, then pushed it open. A man in his mid-30s sat on the couch. His face seemed familiar, but I couldn't place him. "Hey, you must be the one interested in the room," he said with a smooth, rehearsed voice. His smile was friendly but felt off, like he was trying too hard. "Yeah, is it still available?" I asked, trying to keep the conversation normal. He stood up. "It is. Come on in. I'll show you the place." He led me to the second bedroom. It was nice enough, just a bed, desk, dresser. But something felt off. The room had an unnatural coldness, like it hadn't been used in a long time. The silence seemed oppressive, making my skin crawl. "How much were you asking?" I asked, trying to ease the tension. "500, he replied. "Not picky, just need someone to share the rent." His smile widened, but his eyes were hollow, distant. "You seem like a good fit." I agreed to move in the next day, but something about the situation felt wrong. I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that I was walking into a mistake. After moving in, everything seemed normal at first, just 2 roommates sharing a small apartment. But I soon noticed strange habits in Sam, the man I was living with. He'd disappear for hours, sometimes not returning until late at night. His room had very few personal belongings, just a few things in the living room and a small bag by his bed. The most unsettling part was the second bedroom. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone else was in there. Late at night, I'd hear faint noises, shuffling, low whispers, the occasional creak of the bed. Every time I knocked on the door, Sam answered, smiling as though nothing was wrong. He claimed he was just working late, but the sounds didn't add up. I started to feel like I was being watched, as if I wasn't the only one in the apartment. One evening, I came home early. As I stepped inside, I saw Sam sitting on the couch, staring at the door to the second bedroom, his face pale with terror. "What's wrong?" I asked, trying to sound calm. He snapped out of his trance. "Oh, nothing. Just something I thought I heard." But his eyes told a different story. I could see fear in them, real fear, and it unsettled me more than I wanted to admit. That night, I decided to investigate. I waited until Sam left around midnight. Then I crept into the second bedroom. My heart was pounding, but curiosity got the better of me. The door creaked as I opened it, and a wave of cold air hit me. The room was empty, save for the furniture. Then I noticed it, Scratches on the floor, deep, long marks as if something or someone had been dragged across the floor. I felt a knot form in my stomach. What really sent chills down my spine was the faint smell of something rotten in the air. It was subtle but unmistakable. I stepped back, suddenly feeling trapped. Then the door slammed shut behind me. My heart skipped a beat. I spun around, but there was no one there. The room seemed to close in on me. The air grew colder, and I felt something invisible pulling at me, holding me there. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Panic surged in me, and I ran for the door, only for it to feel like something inside the room was pulling me back. I don't know what happened next, but when I woke up, I was back in my bedroom, heart pounding. It was morning. The next day, Sam acted distant, as though nothing had happened. But I felt it. Something had changed in me. I packed up and left that evening, knowing I couldn't stay there any longer. As I was leaving, I saw Sam standing at the door of the second bedroom. He smiled, but it wasn't the same smile. It was colder, more predatory. His eyes, there was something behind them that made me want to run. I did, and I never looked back. To this day, I don't know what happened in that apartment. Sam was never truly a roommate. The room I almost stayed in, it was never empty. And whatever was lurking in that apartment, I'm certain it's still there. I don't know why I thought I could trust it. Maybe I was just desperate. It was the summer after my sophomore year, and I was struggling. My part-time job barely covered rent, and my college fees were piling up. I'd heard about people finding gigs on Craigslist, but I always thought it was risky. This one job listing, though, caught my eye. It was vague, personal assistant needed, flexible hours, must be reliable and discreet. The pay was great, $20 an hour for a few hours a week. But the real draw was the address. It was in an upscale, secluded neighborhood, the kind with huge houses and high gates. Something about that stood out. The reply came fast. A simple, "Are you available tomorrow at 2 p.m.? Be on time. No resume needed. Just show up." I thought it sounded too easy. The house was massive, tucked at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac. I parked, hesitant. The air felt too still, almost unnatural. The front door opened before I could even ring the bell. A man stood in the doorway, mid-40s, tired eyes, too quick of a smile. "You're the one from the ad?" I nodded. "Yes." He stepped aside. "We'll get started right away." Inside, the house felt sterile, clean but empty. There was no warmth, no personal touch. It didn't look lived in. He led me to a small office at the back of the house and gestured to a chair. "Sit." I did, watching him carefully as he sat behind a desk and pulled out a form. "Just need you to sign this confidentiality agreement," he said. I glanced at it. Standard stuff. Non-disclosure, confidentiality, all that legal jargon. I signed. Then he handed me a folder, and that's when things got weird. The folder was filled with photographs, vacation shots, family pictures. But then there were others. Strange black and white photos of unfamiliar faces. The people were posed, but something felt off about them. In the background, there were shadows, figures standing just beyond the frame. I felt a cold shiver run through me. "What's this?" I asked. He smiled again, too calmly. "It's part of your job. You'll help me with my collection." "Collection of what?" "People. Lives." My stomach dropped. I opened my mouth to ask more, but before I could speak, the office door slammed shut. I jumped, my heart racing. He didn't react. He just stared at me. "You'll help organize the collection, won't you?" His voice was colder now. "I don't understand," I stammered. His smile faded, replaced with something darker. "This is the only job I offer. The only one you'll get." I could feel my body freeze, like ice was running through my veins. Something in his eyes told me I was in serious danger. I stood, my hands shaking. "I think I need to leave." But as I reached for the door, I heard the unmistakable click of locks sliding into place. "It's not that simple," he said flatly. My mind raced, my heart thumping in my chest. I turned to face him, panic rising. He was holding a camera now, staring at me with cold eyes. "I've been following you," he said. "The pictures you saw, just the beginning. You'll be the next one in my collection. All I need is a few more shots. Nothing to worry about." My body surged with adrenaline. I tried the door again, but it wouldn't budge. The air felt thick, like I was suffocating. I could hear my breath growing faster, more desperate. "You'll be perfect," he continued, stepping closer. "My best one yet." I didn't think. I grabbed the nearest object I could find, a chair, and slammed it against the door. It cracked open enough for me to slip through. I bolted. I didn't stop until I was back at my apartment, slamming the door behind me, locking it with trembling hands. I leaned against the door, gasping for air, trying to shake the image of his eyes from my mind. I wasn't sure if he was just playing a sick game, or if he truly had something sinister planned. But I knew I wasn't sticking around to find out. The worst part? That night, I received an email. I couldn't even look at it at first. My hands shook too badly, but I knew what it was. I opened it anyway. It was from A. Davis. "Did you enjoy the experience? You were perfect. I'll be in touch soon. There's always room for one more in the collection." I didn't report it. No one would believe me. Besides, I knew I'd never find that house again. I deleted everything, emails, contacts, all of it. But that feeling, like someone's watching me, has never gone away. Sometimes when I scroll through Craigslist, I wonder if that ad is still there. If someone else is reading it, thinking they're just desperate enough to respond. And I wonder, as my pulse quickens, if they'll be next.